Crazy, crazy times. There is so much craziness taking place all over the world. How do we put it all into perspective? Folks, as you know, social media censorship is growing. The best way to support our video work for Israel is to subscribe to our video newsletter on pulseofisrael.com and to share our videos. If you are already a subscriber, then thank you. Let's start with some very recent news. The fall of Afghanistan just now to the Taliban. After 2 decades of hundreds of billions of dollars invested by the United States of America in Afghanistan, as well as training the local Afghan army and propping up a government, Afghanistan has fallen to the Taliban, a horrific Islamic terror society. It's a society. This, after US President Joe Biden just said last month on July 8th that this would never happen. Just listen.
Is the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force, against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Can you please clarify what they have told you about whether that will happen or not?
That is not true. They did not reach that conclusion.
So what is the level of confidence that they have that it will not collapse?
The Afghan government and leadership has to come together. They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place.
And do you see any parallels between this withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. What you had entire brigades breaking through the gates of our embassy. 6, if I'm not mistaken. The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of an embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comparable. So the question now is, where do they go from here? That the jury is still out. But the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
As you heard, he also said that U.S. forces and personnel wouldn't be seen escaping Afghanistan like they did in Vietnam decades earlier. Yet, here is a picture of a U.S. helicopter hovering over the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, positioned to rescue U.S. personnel. Biden was wrong about both. The U.S. president. How are countries like Israel supposed to trust U.S. politicians like Biden who pressure us to give up our lands and do other things in exchange for promises that they will take care of us and protect us, yet sometimes they have to run away from their own promises, whether one government or future governments? The simple answer? We can't trust them. As this professor, Eugene Kontorovich, tweeted quite eloquently, Israelis and other U.S. allies should pay attention to the fall of Kabul. Americans will ask you to make brave sacrifices for peace and promise to ensure your security. They'll make you stick your neck out and then leave you alone. It's 100% truth. Now let's move on to events in Israel. On top of all the news in Afghanistan, we just had horrific local Arab Muslims burning Jewish stars and swastikas, exposing their true agenda. They don't want to create a state called Palestine to live peacefully with us, but they have a Jew-hating, Nazi-like agenda which is based on total Jew hatred, to kill Jews and destroy the Jewish state of Israel. I'm saying this over and over again. Are people waking up to the truth? Well, time will tell. As if all of that is not enough, we are experiencing a very ugly campaign worldwide, where a whole population is being demonized and delegitimized by our own governments and elected officials with the assistance of the media. I'm referring to the very ugly campaign worldwide to blame COVID deaths on people who did not get the vaccination shots. Even though the CDC has already said that even vaccinated people can still get sick and spread the virus. So while the science shows that both those who get the shots and those who did not get the vaccine shots can spread the virus, Yet our own leaders, politicians, and media are creating an atmosphere of demonization and delegitimization, which historically never ends well for anybody. Here is President Joe Biden saying it straight out.
Well, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated, and they're killing people.
And other world leaders, including our Prime Minister here in Israel, Naftali Bennett, are using that same terminology. This is sad for all of humanity, since it affects all of us in every single country we live in. We are all being affected by the virus. We all have people getting sick and dying. We all are making our own decisions, and we don't need our own leaders to create more fear and division in society based on unscientific lies. And if that is not enough, let's go back to Israel. Here we are now experiencing crazy fires burning down our forests, endangering many communities and their inhabitants. Many, if not all, of these fires are arson terror attacks. Yet, establishment media in Israel, our politicians and justice officials totally ignore the nationalistic motives of our enemies, deliberately lighting up these fires.
Honor Merpesa just came out. Must be a fire. It's horrible. Look at this. This is just like, what is going on? This is crazy.
You see this road? I just drove this road with my family a few days ago. The picture above is the road and forest before the fire ravaging the hills of Jerusalem. The picture below is the road and forest after the fire in that area. By the way, the fire is still going on over a day later. So what is going on in the world? How do we deal with this growing craziness? And I'm only pointing out some recent news items. There are plenty of other crazy stuff going on. Well, I will explain it like this. And you know me, I'm a realistic optimist. So you will hear a totally different perspective than mostly heard from most people. What I believe is that we are witnessing a process of demasking, which in the end will be good. What am I referring to? Well, too many people have believed the lies we are being fed by our leaders, our politicians, and media for far too long. Instead of people holding on to their belief in the one above, who's really responsible for everything, too many people have replaced that belief in people instead, which is totally wrong. More and more people today are learning not to trust politicians. More and more people are learning not to trust the journalists and the media. The masks of trust are falling down at a rapid rate. What remains? For people to hold on to their belief in the one and only thing in the universe that we can trust 110%, and that is God above. We have to be the best people we can be, spreading the God-given truths about life, freedom, good and evil. And we have to stop relying on what our politicians and journalists are telling us to believe, and to go back to the basics of trusting God above and the lessons He gave us in the Bible. This is what we are all experiencing together throughout the world, regardless of what country, what religion, what color, all of us. Just as more people will question trusting U.S. government or any government's promises to take risks for peace, like they want Israel to do, so too more and more Israelis are waking up to the true agenda of our enemies, which includes many Arab Muslim Israeli citizens as well. Not all of them, but many of them, not just those in Judea and Samaria and Gaza. Just as more and more people around the world are waking up to the evil ways of our governments and politicians to divide us, whether by race, color, religion, sexual orientation, and now even by vaccination status. All that division does is empower the politicians and leaders, yet it harms our countries and all of humanity as well. We are all one, created equally in the eyes of God. And more people are waking up to realize that and internalize that and turn off what our politicians and journalists are saying, dividing us. So while all these crazy and even sad things are taking place around us, don't lose hope. Things might look and feel really bad, but they actually symbolize a process that is really, really good. It's a necessary wake-up process. In order for the truth to come out, the lies have to be unmasked. It is not a simple process, but the good is right around the corner, so don't lose hope. Hold on to your faith and be part of the wake-up process in spreading the truth of God and the biblical values we hold so dear. This demasking process is taking place right around all of us, all over the world. And the end will be good. He's in charge. When will it be good? I can't tell you, but it will be good. And the process is taking place all around us. We just have to change the way we see everything taking place around us to change our attitude. We have to put down our Western cultured lensed glasses that is making us see things really, really bad and replace them with the belief in God lensed glasses. That change makes all the difference of how we view things taking place. Signing off from the eternal and ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, the eternal and undivided capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem, where God's presence is felt so strongly. So folks, hold on to the truth, hold on to your faith, and stick with me. We're going to get through this together.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.